We have a 7 p.m. public hearing for 260 Foster Street and Allen Engineering.
Thank you. Good evening. Mark Slager from Allen Engineering here on behalf of Durkee Farm Builders. The subject property is at 260 Foster Street, which is actually somewhat deceiving because it's actually the old farmhouse that's on Grimes Lane. The farmhouse is going to be rehabilitated and offered as an affordable housing unit, and the septic system is going to be upgraded with a new geomat system and a new 1,500 gallon 2-compartment septic tank. We are requesting a few variances for the system, one of which is to use a 40 mil HDPE liner for the leach field, and this will prevent any grading from within 50 feet of the wetland. Another variance is to allow grading within 10 feet of a lot line, and the grading in question is actually grading associated with the septic tank, and the lot line is at the sideline of Grimes Lane as well. Would you like me to share my screen with the plan on it?
That'd be a good idea.
Sure, I've seen it, but yeah, please share your screen so everyone can see it.
Okay, can everyone see that?
Yeah. There's quite a bit of big yard too, huh?
Yeah, it's a 5-acre lot. This was actually carved off during the Durkee Farm subdivision.
Yes, yes.
And this is, as I said, it's going to be offered as an affordable housing unit. The last of the variances, a reduction. It's a local upgrade approval under 310 CMR 15.4051H, which is a reduction in groundwater offset from 5 feet to 3 feet. And this is something that's allowed with a geomat system as well. The geomat system offers a 40% reduction in the required leach area. So those are the variances and local upgrade approvals we're requesting.
Thank you. Jim, did you have notes and comments on this?
Sure. So again, it's an existing house, and so as the board looks at what you're granting for relief, you look at what can be done on the site. The house is kind of set at the elevation that it's set at, and so some of these requests are to try to meet the house piping and elevations. Try to prevent excess grading around the house. You're not dumping water towards the house. The other part of it is you've got the wetlands down below. And so by putting the barrier in, you can reduce some of that fill headed towards the wetlands. So it has town water. It's a good sized lot. I think it's a reasonable request to get a system in there that fits for the site.
Yeah, and then they don't need a pump and it won't be a burden on the affordable unit, right? So,
correct.
Yeah,
I didn't know it was going to be affordable, but it just kind of fits in there with the land and the house.
Good. Any board member comments? Are there any abutters?
Nobody has their hands raised.
So we'll entertain a motion. Gino or Matt?
Well, I'd like to know first how many bedrooms going to be in that house.
3 bedrooms. It's an existing 3-bedroom home, and we're not going to increase the flow.
Okay. It's a big lot. I don't think you should have any problem. As long as there's any water going down the hill or something, there's going to be a wall or something like that.
No, it's just a 3-to-1 slope, but we're using a HDPE liner so that we can have the slope start closer to the leach field.
That'd be good. Does Jimmy, you have any objection of that?
No, Gino, like I said, I think when you're trying to work with an existing structure, right, look at what the grading is going to do around the house and try to have the system work within it. And you've got the wetlands down below that kind of hem it in towards the house. So they've got to kind of juggle those two things. So would you say that it'd be okay? I don't have an objection with the relief that they're requesting.
I respect your judgment. Okay, my motion will be that
One
anybody can.
Hang on, Gino, Matt's got a comment.
Go ahead, Matt.
Quick question, Mark. The variance for the property line was for Grimes itself, not for an abutter?
Correct.
Okay.
I'll make a motion then, if it's okay with the board.
Please.
Okay, my motion is to allow whatever he needs on the variance.
So you motion to grant all three variances.
I second.
All right, we'll have a roll call vote. Gino Fratelloni,
Gino Faroni, yes?
Matt Wason,
Matt Wason, yes.
and Kevin Baker votes yes.
Thank you for your presentation, Mark.
Okay, thank you. Have a good night.
You too. All right, we have a 7:10 public hearing for 174 Foster Street, GPR Engineering. Are they here?
I don't see that. Oh, yes. Hold 1 second.
Good evening.
Yeah, we're here. We have 4 minutes before we can start. I was going to see if the board members here had a chance to read the minutes from the last meeting. Gino and Matt?
I read it, yeah. I have no objection.
No comment. Matt?
Says a problem.
Same, no comment.
Okay. Gino, can we get a motion to approve?
Absolutely. I make a motion to approve the minutes for the last meeting we had.
I second.
All right, roll call vote. Gino Fratelloni,
Yes.
Matt Wason,
Matt Wason, yes.
and Kevin Baker votes yes.
Hmm.
Well, we have some downtime. Gino, do you have any updates? Any comments that you'd like to share with us?
At the moment, I don't have any comment because it seemed like somebody was trying to tell me at the farm, they have a home, a beautiful home. The question was, I said, maybe I can mention to the Board of Health, but I don't know. The board might say yes or might say no. They have a beautiful home. The people that I know happen to know it. They say they can't go and get the mail because it's so far away, and because the contractor is seem like he doesn't know what he's doing. But I understand today they told me that they changed the contractor so they can remove the snow to a point where the lady can go and get mail because it's not in a house, it's further down. It's like a big box and everybody in that area go and get mail. So so far, I can't make any suggestion, but being a person in the Board of Health, I went there as an individual, as a citizen of Littleton, and I listened, and they told me for the moment, if we have any problem, we'll write a letter to the Board of Health. That's it. I had to see people going to get mail and then they fall down because it's ice and because the street is not being, taking care of it.
Right.
Thank you.
Matt, do you have any updates or comments? We can also, but save this till we're done with our next public hearing, but just wanted to put it out there while we had some time.
Yep, not just yet.
Okay.
Excuse me, Janet. I think Mrs. Martins is in the audience as well. Thank you.
All right, I have 7:10. We'll start the public hearing for 174 Foster Street, GPR Engineering. Is that Mr. Ringwall?
Good evening.
Hi.
May I share my screen?
Please.
Okay. Good evening. This is a increase in flow. This is a 3-bedroom design that was actually designed as a with a 4-bedroom flow rate under the old Title V and the current Title V at the changeover at 95, but there was never a reserve area done for it. At this point, the homeowners are proposing an addition, which will add a bedroom to the house. And so we've gone out and done some additional testing with Jim and designed a new system where the current system is. The current system had fill over the property line. As you can see here, there's a fill easement. And there's just a little tiny bit of fill that is necessary across the property line, but we're obviously grading within 10 feet. So we're requesting a variance from your regulation 27 fill requirements to allow fill within 10 feet of the property line. And I'm going to stop sharing so that I can see you folks.
Where'd you put the reserve?
The reserve is between trenches.
Okay.
It's between trenches. I can bring it back up if you like.
No, I know what that is.
Okay.
Jim, do you have any comments on that?
So this call came about reviewing a building permit plan. They want to add on to the house, looked at the septic system plans, and as Mr. Engwall mentioned, wasn't fully compliant with Title V. So once the testing was done, they were able to put together a design that will be fully compliant with Title V. And since that easement was there, that fill could go onto that spot, and that system could be accommodated in that location. So it really shouldn't change the grading a whole lot. I think there's just a tiny bit of maybe 6 inches, 8 inches that it has to come up near on one corner of it. So again, I don't really see an issue with the variance that they're requesting.
And I believe that the board would have received an email, I believe a week ago on the 14th from the abutter, Brian Gannon, saying that he had no problem with this request.
And does that fill easement need to be updated, or does that sort of fit in with what the current fill easement states?
We're actually in the process of updating it. We have a proposed easement plan and working out language with the owners next door, and they're all in favor of it. We're just getting it tweaked. It's actually less area required, but we're maintaining the whole area because that was what was for the previous permit.
Any board member comments?
No, at the moment, I don't have any comment.
So just so I'm clear, an easement exists from prior work and
Right.
now you're just looking to modify the easement, or?
We're cleaning up the language and making it clear what can and can't be done on the two properties. And with that will be an attached easement exhibit.
Okay.
Are there any abutters?
Not present.
Not present. Okay.
They sent an email in.
Okay, Gino or Matt, any motion, any
Well,
action?
I don't think it should be any problem. I think I should go through. Okay. Jimmy, is any objection?
Gino, I don't have any objections. Like I say, it's going to be a fully compliant system, so shouldn't be any issue.
Thank you. Yeah. So you heard Jimmy and you heard me. And I think I should go through motion to let finish their job. I mean, it look like they're trying to make it look nice.
So motion to approve the variance.
Yeah, the variance are being approved because they need an extra bedroom, so I'm sure they're going to be able to use it. I have no objection. Motion to approve.
Just to be procedural, should we make the motion contingent upon the easement situation just being cleared out and done?
You can do that if you want to, but it seems like he's going to take care of it, and it's going to look all right.
Certainly, we'll forward that to you as soon as it's done.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so motion to approve the variance with the fill easement in place.
Right.
Yes.
Is there a second? Is that a second, Matt?
That's my second then, yes.
Okay. We'll take a roll call vote. Gino Fratelloni,
Jennifer, say yes, thank you.
and Matt Wason,
Matt Wason, yes.
and Kevin Baker votes yes. Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
You too.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, it's 7:15. We have a public hearing, a continued public hearing for 27 Maplehurst, Civil Solutions. Jim, I wanted to talk to you about this. Fill me in on where you're at, if you've had a conversation with Kirk about the treatment.
So we talk all the time, and when we're on the site, we talk about what types of systems might work best on there. I think maybe he and I have a slight difference of opinion about the meaning of treatment and what the geomat may offer for treatment versus what I had suggested to the board offers for
Right.
treatment. One of the nice things about a treatment tank is somebody manages it and you test it from time to time, so you can actually test to see if you're getting results that that you can say, yes, treatment is occurring. The geomat, it's approved in the state without C33 sand, or with, I think, like a foot of C33 sand, and that actually gets treatment. But again, no way really to verify.
Is there a way, because the question was brought up that, precedent, are we requiring treatment prior to the leach field for, a certain reason? And I mean, I think it's a great idea. I think that, it's beneficial to the public health, and it's, you're getting a cleaner product, down the line. But how can we, put something in place and sort of, be consistent and measurable, so that when someone says, okay, here's the perk rate, here's the, here's the side lot, you want to use a geomat, this water, this many inches from the water table, that all would lead to us wanting to require treatment in a geomat. Do we have those sort of metrics?
Well, again, what you use is the code for a guide. So there's a section of the code that talks about maximum feasible compliance. So that the Title V is considered a minimum code. So this is the minimum you should be doing to protect the public health and safety. It also realizes that when it was instituted, there were a lot of existing houses. And so it had to make provisions to be able to fix existing systems that were in place before the regulations went into place. And so it goes through, some of the considerations that a board should take when they're looking at, what to approve and what to grant for relief. And so I think I try to do that when I look at each site. And so obviously the public health piece comes first. Title V says they want 4 feet or 5 feet of groundwater clearance if you can. As you know, around the lake, that's a really hard thing to do. Fortunately, around the lake, you've got public water, so that helps out in that regard. So then you've got wetlands and your swimming body of water. What's contributing or what's a tributary to that. And as you're dumping, effluent into the groundwater, because that's where it all goes, where is it going? What's receiving that in short term? So things like wetlands become important. And I certainly wouldn't discount the value of one wetlands over another. But as I look at wetlands, if you had kind of a low area, that's what we kind of look at as a swamp. That may be something different than if there's a flowing stream that you're nearby, because it's maybe more. And again, these are the kind of calculations you go through in your mind. Some other calculations, sometimes when you've got an existing house like we've had before, you can't really do much to raise it. So now you're looking to put a system in that allows you to grade around the house in such a way that you don't impact the house severely. Or you can't raise the plumbing. Sometimes you can address that with a pump. So again, you try to go through kind of a thoughtful process about what is it that you'd like to see here, and what is it that would make both sense from a public health standpoint, because that's with the Board of Health, that's what we're looking at first, and then other considerations. I mean, you could put everyone in a tight tank. State wouldn't like that. Homeowners wouldn't like that. That's the best thing, is no water would go into the ground, right?
Yeah.
So then you're looking at something from there to what is it that we can put on there. Anything you do on these sites is going to be better than what's there. But with that notion of, full compliance in mind, how good a compliance can you get on the site?
Hmm.
So I think I saw Kevin pop up.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure how this is that much different than any other system where the state code and Littleton's code says the system's got to be 50 feet off the wetlands. We meet both those. We've used the geomat numerous times. It's approved through the state for the 2-foot groundwater reduction. I think the board has granted it, and every time we've been in, I think always been granted that approval. So I guess I'm not sure. We're setting a precedent. I mean, when do we decide we need pre-treatment? Is it 55 feet, 60, 65? What's the magic number? I guess my thought is it should be maybe 50 once we go beyond the state or the local code. But we're not asking for that variance. It's not necessary. The proposed system is 63 feet off the wetlands. It is pressure dose, so it's going to have a nice even distribution. The system, the geomat, has been approved. It's been run through the program down the Cape. It's been approved for the 2-foot. So I guess my mind, it's a pretty good system. I mean, it's a good solution for this particular site. Yeah, the site is wet, but I think most sites in Littleton are wet. We did use the modeling, so I mean, we've got the 2-foot offset to the groundwater. And obviously we want to try to make the thing blend into the neighborhood as best we can. We don't want to start blocking drainage from any of the neighbors. Yep, pick it up. That's just going to block the drainage coming from the next door neighbor.
Well, it sounds to me like it's a sensitive area. I know it's a tight site and everybody's trying to do the best they can.
Right.
It probably is in the best interest of public health to have the treatment there. I hate to not have it and then have a problem down the road. But we'll, or Matt, do you have any comments, questions?
If I could, can anyone hear? Can I speak or?
Yeah, let me ask a comment from the board first.
Okay, yeah.
Gino, any comment? Matt?
Years ago, we used to have 100 feet away from the wetland.
I know.
For some reason, sometimes we give the variance as long as not over 50 feet. So sometimes all depends. And we always double check with Jimmy. Jim, am I correct? You used to be under, and now we allow to up to 50 feet as long as it doesn't cause any problem.
So the state code is 50 feet, and Littleton uses the state code for wetlands offset.
Good. Okay. So I don't see why any problem, as long they don't cause any problem to the neighbors. But that's it.
Matt, do you have any comments?
I think I'm sensitive to that is as it's been stated, we won't really know if there's a problem until there's a problem.
There is a
And
problem, yeah.
who knows how long. And I respect where you're coming from, Kevin. It's far easier to work in a nice concrete construct where we say, well, this is what the rules are, and that's what we're following every single time. But I am sensitive to a lot of these just go through quickly, but this one has definitely gotten more attention than others. And I think we just have to be cautious and careful with that. Have we heard from the abutters that are actually for the variance for the grading within the property line?
I don't think so.
Janet, are there any abutters here? We heard from them at our last meeting, Matt. I don't know if they're here tonight.
Yeah, they were the neighbors uphill, so I don't think they were the property line variance.
Yeah, I don't have any hands raised and I don't recognize if the name says in a butter.
Kyle, go ahead. You had a comment?
Yeah, so I walked the property today with the butter that was concerned in the last meeting, and went over grading and all sorts of different things with her. She said she was going to check into this meeting tonight. I guess she hasn't made it, but we were on an understanding on a few different things. So, and then my question as far as treatment goes in this site, Jim rattled off a lot of information there. I'm not sure what exactly he was speaking of, in relation to this site itself. I've installed a lot of geomats in this neighborhood, all with 2-foot groundwater reduction to groundwater, and never once with treatment. I've installed systems much closer to wetlands than this in Littleton, in this neighborhood, no treatment, 2-foot groundwater offset. And so I guess in the information that Jim provided, what exactly is relevant here, and why is this different, and why is this more sensitive to the treatment compared to some of these other sites, which I have worked with you on, you were familiar with. So that, I guess just a little insight on that would be very good from as the owner's standpoint. Why here is this so much more relevant, where in the past it has not been?
Well, what was your, what did the testing reveal on the groundwater? How far down was it?
About 16 inches.
I mean, that's pretty high. That's pretty high.
Yeah, but we're keeping a 2-foot each septic system is designed based on the high groundwater elevation, whether it's at 6 inches or 48 inches, we're asking. So we're still keeping that separation. Whether groundwater is at 0 inches, then we'd be 2 feet above that. If it was at 6 inches, we'd be 2 feet above that. So we're maintaining that variance that we're asking for. It happens to be, yes, groundwater's at 16 inches, but we are proposing 2 feet above that. We're not proposing 1 foot above that. We're keeping within the recommended and approved geomat specifications, and it's on their manual website, and what's been approved, more than a dozen times in this neighborhood already.
Yeah, I feel like in this area, if grading wasn't an issue, we'd probably be landing on a 3-foot groundwater offset, and
that's the best thing about this system.
And we wouldn't be talking about this, right? So,
right.
I feel like it's.
Well, that's not true, because there's a lot of times that we could use 3 feet and we still use 2 feet. I install them all the time. And you guys approve them all the time too.
Right, but we wouldn't have had 2 meetings. We wouldn't have had 2 meetings about it.
No, we wouldn't. But Jim wasn't at the last meeting, which was the reason why it was continued, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So, Jim, do you want to speak to Kyle's question real quick before we
Make a
Sure.
decision.
So I think, again, going back to maximum feasible compliance, I think the board tries to work with whatever homeowner that comes in to try to minimize the height of the system, the effect the system's going to have on their property. I think that's a big piece of what they do. And again, a lot of times we're dealing with existing houses, and that's why the geomat works so well. The grading doesn't make as much a mess of the yard as possible. I think three things probably stood out. One, that the wetlands we're talking about isn't just kind of a swampy area, it's a stream, and I'm not really sure which way it flows. So to me, a little more sensitive receptor. We're putting in, even though this is coming in under the kind of upgrade or repair permitting process, the old structure is going to be taken down, a new one put on. Now, a bunch of things on that. One, that's a great thing, because that allows more flexibility to put a system on this site. And again, that makes a big difference about where you can get the system to fit in there. But again, I think as we look at kind of the trade-offs, we're putting a new structure on the site. Again, a good thing for some reasons. From the public health standpoint, is there something we can do? Because I think the groundwater offset's important to stay at 2 feet, just because, I mean, I guess you could build the house higher, but again, to what end? If you're trying to get towards that maximum feasible compliance. But putting the treatment in there, again, I'm not sure, and again, we have dealt with lots and lots of these. I'm not sure how many of these that you've granted have been for reconstruction of houses, like, essentially putting a new house on a tear down rebuilds kind of thing.
Yeah, well, can you walk me through a scenario of what a new construction system looks like on that lot?
Well, it would be 4 feet above the groundwater, and that wall would be much higher. And you'd need to have a reserve area, so you couldn't do it on that site for all those reasons. So this, I
Right.
mean, it's
So it's kind of like a
upsizing.
loophole. Yeah.
Well, and so it's not considered a new house because we're keeping the same number of bedrooms. And again, the fact that the old one's coming down is good for all kinds of reasons, but probably the biggest reason is they're able to move the house a little bit. And pick it up enough so they can actually do the grading, even with a 2-foot offset that works in there nice with a relatively small wall. But again, I think as we look at designs, they are allowed to go, you as a board are allowed to grant up to a 2-foot groundwater offset. You know, the language in the approval says may grant. And so it's just kind of the opposite, I think, of what Kevin's saying. I'd like to think that we look at each one of these things and say, yeah, we've done the best possible job of putting a design on these sites and for all the considerations. Because if it's just cookie cutter, you know, that's not really meeting the intent of the regulations.
The other thing is that if he were not knocking the house down and putting a new one up, the system, if we were just remodeling the house and put a new system in, it'd be far closer to the wetlands than this particular system. The big benefit of knocking the house down here is it allows them to move the house so that and get the septic system greater than the 50 feet from the wetlands.
Yeah. Agree.
If we were working with the house that's there,
yeah,
we'd be
And again, if I could
in the buffers completely within 50.
if I could comment again too, I can actually speak to Jim's comments on existing homes and new construction. As far as being next to flowing water, about 3 years ago, I installed a septic system at 3 Washington Drive, which was right on a flowing stream. The system, the wall was actually, I think it was about 12 to 16 feet away. That was a 2-foot groundwater reduction to the high groundwater modeling, no treatment. And I myself, as far as the new construction, I can attest to 3 Westchester Drive. I demoed a dilapidated building myself. I put in a new septic system, a geomat, on a conservation sensitive site. There was wetlands on each end throughout, and that had a 2-foot groundwater reduction and no treatment. And that was a demo remodel, geomat, 2-foot offset by wetlands, no treatment. And then as far as the flowing water goes, that was a Presby system at number 3 Washington, but that was directly on a stream that runs right through that neighborhood. And as far as running to the lake, I would say that's a much bigger contender with no treatment and a 2-foot groundwater offset.
On the Washington, that was an existing house that we were trying to fit the grading in.
Yeah, I want to do a test of both new construction and an existing. So yeah.
On 3 Westchester, you actually reduced the number of bedrooms from 4.
But it was that was a 3-bedroom rather than a 2-bedroom.
Yeah, but I mean, you actually had the right if you were to put a 4-bedroom on there because of the way the permits were, and you actually,
but I still put in a 3-bedroom
right. No,
geomat with a 2-foot groundwater offset in a wetland restricted area.
Yeah, we're again trying to take a look at mitigations that may have been done.
I feel like we're doing the best we can here, and the best we can for the buyers of this home, not having to, because I do understand treatment at times. There's nitrogen sensitive areas which require these things, but I also believe that not just the cost of the system. I believe that this is something that the homeowners don't actually follow through with, and you can probably attest to that. I've done a dozen Title V's on people with these units, and they don't have the contracts in place. They don't do the maintenance required. And and at that point, it's just, a lot of times the pumps are disabled or unplugged, the breakers broke, and they're not even doing their job. And in this situation, I just look at this and go, why is it necessary compared to all the other ones that I've done and am familiar with in the neighborhood. And I do agree that there's times, mostly in nitrogen sensitive areas, where these are required, but in this situation, we're not nitrogen sensitive, and I'm looking at this as very similar to all the other sites around, and that's as far as it goes. I think in reality, that's what we're dealing with here. Is the same as so many others that don't have treatment.
Thank you. So we'll take some board member comment. Matt, did you have any comment on this at this point, or Gino?
No, at this moment, no. I think they should give them a 2 feet from 4 to 2. It makes sense.
The question is the treatment, Gino.
Yeah,
Treatment.
the treatment. Yeah, it's fine with the treatment. That's no problem.
Right now, we're not providing any enhanced treatment, any pre-treatment.
Other than
We're using the
geomat.
geomat for the
Yeah.
2-foot groundwater offset.
And the geomat is proven to provide treatment in itself.
Okay.
Matt Wason, do you have any comment?
I appreciate all the comments and information. I don't have the longevity of expertise here, and I hear you talk about other projects, and they're not a good comparator for me. I think
It's in the same neighborhood and very adjacent, very close to this property. I'd say they're very comparable.
I think saying that people don't maintain their systems properly is probably not a good reason to not recommend that road. But I think I would have a hard time trying to honestly go a direction here.
Okay.
Should we consider looking at similar case studies to make sure we're not trying to set or break a precedent?
In my opinion, not approving this as presented would be setting a precedent. I do think that adding the treatment would be beneficial to public health. However, the board does not have local regulation pertaining to geomat systems.
Right.
I think it's something that we need to discuss. And I think that we need to take a look at our local regulations and provide for these situations where, yeah, we've been doing it this way for all these years, but now maybe with all this new technology, maybe we want to take a look at doing something differently, or at least having the data and the metrics there set out in black and white. So when these engineers and installers who do a great job sort of know what they're getting into and know what Littleton's going to require. So I would make a motion to approve this as presented. Although I do think that the treatment is a good idea. I think that it's setting a precedent that the applicant could come back and it could be a legal battle just because these other projects have been in such close proximity, so similar. And I do understand how Jim does such a great job looking at each individual site and each individual system through a different lens in the eyes of public health, because they're all different and they all have different requirements. However, treatment is not a requirement that the Littleton Board of Health sets out right now in their local regs. So maybe that's something we can adjust, but I'll make a motion to approve the system as presented.
One question then before that, Mr. Mann, you mentioned meeting with the abutters and commented that you expected them to be here tonight. Can you give us any inkling of where that was going to go, you think?
Yeah, so we had a great conversation actually in regards to, to them, treatment, no treatment, septic system. That wasn't what the discussion was about. It was about drainage from our property onto theirs. So what I did was, in relation to a benchmark that Kevin and Kirk had provided, I was able to show them, what the proposed grading is and how it's going to blend in. And we discussed what we had previously discussed in the last meeting, which was a stone trench along the property line that ties into the trench behind the proposed wall. So any water because we're actually going to be slightly lower than her property. So any water that kind of runs from ours to hers and hers to ours will get gathered in that trench. So not only we won't be providing water issues for her, but her water won't be shedding towards us either. So that was more the conversation. And then we talked about what type of building would be there and things like that, and the construction process. So
What happened? Going battery. Oh no.
So there's a motion to approve. I didn't hear a second.
I second.
All right, we'll have a roll call vote. Gino Fratelloni.
Yes, I'm low in battery, so I gotta switch my,
That's all right. We can still hear you. Matt Wason
Matt Wason, yes.
and Kevin Baker. Yes. Thanks, guys. Janet, can we please put on our next agenda to discuss the local regulations as they pertain to new technology, innovative alternative systems, and what our threshold for treatment might be. Please.
Yes, sorry, I was writing and on mute. Got it.
I didn't say
Thanks.
please. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah,
So we have,
thank you very much.
We have a 7:20 public hearing for 179 Goldsmith Street.
8,
9, 2.
2,
Gino, can you mute?
Yeah, I can, but I'm mute already, I think.
No. Yeah. Is Nicole here, Janet?
yes.
Okay, great. Jim, did you speak with Nicole about potentially upgrading that tank that they have there from a 1 compartment to a 2 compartment?
So it sent an email just kind of explaining the requirement.
Go ahead, Nicole. How are you?
Yes, hi, thank you. Thanks for having me. Yes, so I got an email back from Jim, and I had sent over, the original plans from the septic from 2003, and he had said that it is a single compartment tank, and that a single compartment tank is acceptable for a single family home. Saying that adding the accessory apartment would make it, a multifamily home. I kind of thought that the accessory apartment bylaw is a way around that, to not assume it as a multifamily home. But that's just what I heard back.
And Jim, what are the requirements for a multifamily home for a tank?
So the way the code reads, it talks about 1,500 gallon tank being the minimum tank size these days, and then it talks about other than single family. So that's how the actual it's worded. Doesn't talk and needing a second 2 compartment tank essentially. And so I'd hate to try to guess the rationale, the committee that put the regulations together, but one would think that if you had multiple units, you'll have multiple kitchens and bathrooms, and even if you had the same number of people in there, you have different households doing the same thing at the same times possibly. So having the multiple compartment may actually provide you some settling protection as the tank is being used.
So are we tonight being asked to approve a 2 compartment tank for this system that will then put it into compliance with the building permit?
I think, and again, I'm not particularly sure. I mean, the accessory apartment I'm not as savvy to be able to bring up your meeting notes, but the accessory unit bylaw component was in the meeting notes.
Right. No, I saw.
And so there's one of the notes in there, and I knew there was I thought the board had regulations on it, on accessory units, but I think it's just the zoning reg there. And one of it talks about, making sure there's a reserve area. I forget exactly the language that's in there. So some of my original comments to you the last time was, this is a really small lot. And it has a repair on it I think it was put in, it was sometime after 1995 because it's got a 1,500 gallon tank. And it's going to have the same number of bedrooms according to the proposal, but it's going to have 2 units. And so there's no place on that site, I believe, based on the design to put a reserve area. They'll have to dig out the old, put it in the same place, which is typically what you're going to do down in that neighborhood anyway. So that's not that unusual. But I think one of the things—
It'll probably be a geomat with treatment though, I'd imagine.
I like your thinking.
Yeah.
Because the other thing that the geomat with the treatment would allow you to do is actually do some reduction in system size.
Yep.
Treatment does. So I think you'll probably see one of those in the next few months. Somebody wants to tear down, rebuild, and they realize that the only way they're going to fit a system is that way.
Right.
And then I guess the other thing to think about in these, and I've said this to you on building permits and plans before, I never really doubt that the people who come before you are going to use the house the way they're going to use it. But you're always designing and permitting systems for properties for the property, not the people in the property necessarily. So we know there's lots of 4-bedroom houses in town that probably don't have 8 people living in them, probably most of them. But you have no control over The property, once you grant permits for those properties, they can be used however they're going to be used after that. So just something to keep in mind as you're looking at these things here. So
Got it. So Nicole, did you what did you want to get accomplished, try to get accomplished this evening?
So I'd like to get it approved so that we can move forward with applying for the accessory apartment bylaw and start construction. Obviously, ideally, we'd like to save the money on upgrading the system. But if that's what it takes to get it approved, then we're more than happy to do that. I can't remember who I spoke with, if it was Jim or Ed. Someone had told me that if it was approved with an upgraded tank, then we would be able to do the tank upgrade and start construction on the in-law apartment at the same time. So that would be preferable if that's an option. But I'd just like to get approval to move forward with the in-law apartment.
Well, I'd make a motion to approve moving forward with the in-law apartment with a 2-compartment 1,500-gallon tank added to the system, replacing the old tank.
Replace the whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay, and can we do that at the same time as we start construction on that?
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
Yes,
Okay.
okay. I second it.
And that 2-compartment tank addresses the appropriate reserve area on site as stated
Right.
in the apartment bylaws.
There is no reserve area on that site. There's never going to be, and there's really nothing that we can do about it.
As our ample substitute for being able to meet that
Sorry.
ideal reserve area.
Yeah, well, Jim,
I guess I'm just asking, if we brought somebody else in and said, draw up plans for how you make this system as compliant as possible to us, what would they draw up?
I don't know that they could do anything different to make that, to address that reserve, that system. Yeah, you're part of what, no, I don't think so.
is
I
the
was gonna
reserve
say that-
between the trenches now?
Well, I was gonna say, if you went back to your 174 Foster Street, that was an example where they took an area that was being used. It was upgraded back in 1992 for the 3-bedroom. They took that same area because of the way the code has changed. They were able to put a primer and a reserve within that same area. But that was a much different soil condition, water table condition. Here, the water table is high. The lot area is extremely tight. I think the system's already enclosed in a retaining wall, and it's a leach bed, so you can't really do the reserve between thing. So to Kevin's point about, we'll see it with the geomat and a treatment, that might be what you need to do to deal with that system in the future.
And quick question: does a 2,000-gallon tank do any? Is it beneficial while they're changing the tank out? Should it be a 2,000? Doesn't matter.
I think that having the 2-compartment 1,500-gallon with a 3-bedroom, I think is probably adequate, because they'll end up putting a T-filter on the other end of it too. So you'll get the addition of having that a little bit of filtering going on before the water leaves the tank. Back when that was installed, it probably didn't have a filter on it.
Right.
With the new tank, your regulations require a T-filter.
All right. Well, we have a
Right.
motion and we have a second.
I second it.
So I'll take a roll call vote. Matt, unless you have another comment before we do that.
Go ahead.
Okay. Gino Valoni.
Gino say yes.
Okay. Matt Wason
Matt Wason, yes.
and Kevin Baker votes yes. Thanks, Nicole.
Yay, thank you.
Good luck, Nicole.
So we have a 7:30 COVID update with Jim. Thanks for the news in the email.
What's that?
Thanks for the good news in the email about the number of cases.
No, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, the cases have dropped, and not just dropped, but dropped precipitously. I mean, from the tolling, the period of time, the state reporting period of time of January 2nd to 15th, so 2 weeks after New Year's, the cases have dropped significantly. I mean, I think you've gone
300 to 33, right?
Yeah. I mean, you guys are well over 200 tests. So, and that's not just in Littleton, that's happening. I mean, you can see in the numbers I sent from Middlesex County, all the communities are doing the same thing. The other thing that's happening is the number of cases we're seeing per day. Just after Christmas in the district, so the 16 towns, we're seeing, some days over 300 cases a day. The case numbers now are more in line with 10 to 20. And some days are even less than 10. So again, all things moving in the right direction. We are still seeing, in those handful of cases, sometimes it's still kind of family transmission. So, a couple of, and that's even more noticeable as the numbers get smaller, that, if you get 15 and 2 or 3 of them are in households, that's a bunch of your cases right there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I guess one of the kind of things you kind of balance against it, we're probably not seeing as much PCR testing as we were before, because people have access to home testing. We're out of the holidays. There's less of it. The Omicron seems to be on the so there were reasons why that, that testing number may look better than it actually is, kind of thing. But yeah, I think I don't know if Katrina presented last time of the wastewater testing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an interesting perspective, because there's it just is what it is. So it doesn't matter if you're doing home testing or PCR testing. We're getting the information we need because people are using the bathroom.
Right.
So maybe that's as we're looking at trends, maybe it's a better way to look at trends, because it's kind of unmediated. It's just what it is. And that's gone down significantly too. I think that might be in the future. I don't know if I'm sure if CDC is going to do it. If they were to do this kind of testing on some of the larger wastewater treatment facilities, because some of them are regional, like Worcester has, Blackstone is a regional treatment facility. So that would give you information out this way here. If you did it at the Upper Lawrence treatment plant, I mean, so all of a sudden you might get a better picture of trends in the state that aren't relying on people going to get testing. So I think in general, it's all heading in the right direction. The state's advisory on masks have changed 2 weeks ago, or no, a week ago, to essentially, unvaccinated, immunocompromised, if you're having to do it for quarantine. And there was one other one that just slips my mind now. So the kind of, and CDC is supposedly going to be looking, we'll see what they do, looking at their mask recommendation at this point. So.
Great. So it's all good news. Hopefully it keeps getting better and people will, have the windows open and keep getting tested.
Well, and the vaccination rates are great. I mean, you guys have fantastic vaccination rates in town. So.
I know Mike Zeldin is pursuing the sewage testing for Littleton, and I think it's hopefully promising that we might be able to find a way to actually get our own local data for that.
Yeah. Very
so
good.
On the new plant that you're building?
That, and also in the meantime, testing up at the high school.
Okay.
Because how many buildings does that serve? Does that serve the middle school too?
I think the middle, the high school, town hall, the library, and the fire station, I think.
Okay.
And soon the development aside of the town hall, so.
Right.
Is tied into it, so. That may be the only kind of weirdo thing about testing that treatment plant at this point here, because of the population that you're doing. It's not capturing the larger.
Full picture.
Yeah.
That's
All right.
good.
Is that pretty much it for the COVID update? Things are moving in the right direction. So
Right.
good.
Like I said, it's barring any new variants or anything. But, yeah, I think we're good.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Gino or Matt, do you have any comments or questions on that?
No, I'm very happy with the reduction of the people getting sick. Very happy.
All right, so we had a 7:40 discussion or public hearing on residential trash haulers. I'm going to make a motion to continue that until we have our full board here. Dan Kane did say over regulations that are used in another town. I've gone through about half of that. Everything looks really robust. I'm trying to see if there's anything that we're missing. So if you guys could just look over that. Jim, did you get a copy of those
I did, and I what I was trying to do is talk to the state, the person at the state level who helps communities with regs, and I hadn't really been able to connect with her. So I was going to grab Harvard's regs because I know there's some of the newer regs that we've seen in the district. So I reached out to the admin in Harvard to try to get her take on their regs and how
they're working.
Yeah. And so what I can do is I'll check with her. She sent me some comments back. And one of them was adding dumpsters to theirs. And just get a sense of the application of those. There's a bunch of record keeping and chasing people for paperwork and that kind of stuff. So if she doesn't mind, I'll ask her if I can pass that on to you so you have a sense of the actual application of those regulations as well.
Yeah.
Can you make some copy, Jimmy? Can you make some copy for us?
Sure. And she also made some, I don't know if she's talked to their board yet or if they're waiting to talk to the state person who helped them with those regs about some change to the regs. So again, if she doesn't mind me sharing them with you, I'll send those over.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Janet, can we put this discussion or the public hearing on our next agenda when we have a full board? We also had under 740 to discuss the memorandum of agreement between the Board of Health and the Select Board. However, we don't have a full board here. We didn't even get a copy of the memorandum of agreement. I had to download it from the packet from their meeting.
We'll do it next time.
So I went through it, I looked at it. I think we need to have town council guide us on that a little bit. I think there's a couple pieces missing, and it's an important piece of the puzzle moving forward here. So I'll make a motion to that as well until our next meeting.
All right, if you need a second, I'll give you a second.
Please, on both of those, that'd be great.
Thank you for both of them.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Gino Fratelloni,
Gina Ferroni, yes.
Matt Wason,
Yes.
and Kevin Baker votes yes. And so in addition to that, was there any correspondence, Janet, that we needed to address tonight?
No, our email and letters have drastically decreased.
Good. No news is good news. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, any board member comments, updates?
Nothing further, thanks.
Okay, I just wanted to check in with you on the on the rubric that we have, the decision system that we're looking to put in place. Have you made any progress on it? Where does that stand? Because I'd love to get it up there just because.
Just tweaks so far. So I think no earth shattering changes to it. If maybe it was no news is good news. But if I maybe ping it out one more time just for any input, and if there doesn't seem to be any concern, then I can work with Janet to see how we can get that more formally posted and updated regularly.
That'd be great.
I think I'm going to talk to Katrina about trying to figure out if we can get something a little smoother for the community members who are up to date, because we know that's not a real number reported to us, and we're doing some, kind of back calculation, which is better than nothing. But I had an idea for maybe a way to pursue, so I'll see what her method is.
Okay.
For figuring out who's got booster shots, you mean, or?
Right. Who's eligible, who's up to date, who is eligible for a booster and has gotten one within the current recommended time frame.
Okay. I know the states on their reports are printing a column for, people, the percentage boosted. So.
Right. But doesn't it? Yeah, bad denominator. Because it's all.
Well, exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So it makes our number go from like 54% to 75% when you actually look at who is eligible for the booster. So
okay.
We could lower the bar precipitously, but I would, if possible, I'd much rather have that actual up-to-date stat, which the state might eventually get to, but in the meantime, what can we do?
Okay.
All right. Well, that's all I have. I don't have any comments. Jim, is there another booster clinic that you guys are hosting?
So the numbers have dropped off in places. So what we're trying to do now is more targeted. I mean, I think we had a booster clinic today. There were 11 people there, I think. So what we're trying to do is kind of target it. So we're going to go over to Devon's, to our father's house. Bull Run's going to host us there, and they called around to their other restaurant folks to see if people are interested. I think we're going to be up at the Taste in the Show up in Groton to do that. One of the school districts we're going to try to go to. Their percentages are low, so we figured we'd go up there and offer it. So again, we're trying to move around and try to find people where they are and try to see if it's proximity that matters. Maybe if we get closer, they'll get it. So
Great. Keep up the good work. That's awesome.
yeah, we're fine.
Thank you, Jamie, for what you're doing.
You're welcome, Gina.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
All right. So I think all we need now is a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call vote. Gino Fratelloni.
Gino Fratelloni, yes, I see you. Be careful. Friday's gonna be a foot of snow according to the weather. So be careful and be safe, okay?
You too. Matt Wason.
Now, Asen second.
And
Yes.
yes. All right. And Kevin Baker votes yes. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Janet. Thanks, Dave. And